Week 12. It will make for a wonderful, interesting week of discourse ahead of the Thanksgiving Day games on Thursday. That is for sure. Contenders being close and being written off. Some coming back and winning. Others losing it in the last instance. And also rookie quarterbacks performing like rookie quarterbacks. Let's talk through it all, Hayden, and specifically the AFC playoff race, starting with the Kansas City Chiefs going to Super Bowls, AFC championships year after year. However, they entered week 12, 5-5, and leave it 6-5 after beating the Indianapolis Colts at home 23-20 with 14 points in the fourth quarter and overtime compared to the Colts 0.
This Chiefs win represents what's been frustrating and also fun about watching the Chiefs for the last couple years now. Mahomes gives the Colts the ball immediately. Latu's like surfing a zone read, tips the ball up, intercepts it, gets down to the 2-yard line. The Colts score a touchdown. The next 3 drives for the Chiefs, field goal, field goal, field goal. It's at halftime. Look up. The Chiefs have an 87th percentile success rate, but they're down because they're converting field goals and they're not creating any explosives. The Colts go up. It's 20-9, and everyone's tweeting out the chances that the Chiefs are going to make the playoffs. Of course, what do the Chiefs do? Chris Jones makes multiple big plays. Patrick Mahomes makes multiple big plays. Kareem Hunt is kind of the steadying force of it all. And the guy that steps up when they absolutely need him the most, I will say, was Rashee Rice. At one point, I tweeted that he had 7 targets for just 9 yards. And if you look at the man coverage stats, once again, the Colts corners were absolutely annihilating the Chiefs wide receivers. I'll include Xavier Worthy into that, but the secondary guys were not able to get open. Down the end, towards the end of the game, Rashee Rice finally gets open multiple times, crossing route for chunk plays. Xavier Worthy on the game-winning drive, he has a huge 30-yard conversion, another crossing route for those 2 speedsters. So it was really a lackluster game for the Chiefs offense. They were consistently moving the ball. You had a couple, like you had the interception with Mahomes, you had a Kareem Hunt fumble. They were constantly moving the ball slowly, but they could not finish it off in the red area. But in overtime, they get a huge win. And now they have a pretty much like 3-4 chance of making the playoffs.
Yep. Right now, over on the Athletics playoff picture, it says they're currently 64%. The next 2 games, it's against the Cowboys and the Texans. Losing one of those 2 makes it interesting. Winning one of them certainly puts them at that 75% chance of making the playoffs. I understand the Chiefs are a major conversation here. I do want to bring up the Indianapolis Colts because for the vast majority of this season, this has been the surprise of the year. I, in many instances, have felt that it was real and that it would be difficult to stop when they're in rhythm and in flow. And in fact, in the first half, I think you could point to, because of, the defensive touchdown that they basically got in the first half, that they were ahead. They were in a script that they absolutely wanted it to be. I mean, up 14-9 after third quarter opening series, the Kansas City Chiefs go 3 and out, and all they can muster in the second half: field goal, punt, 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 punt. That's including in the fourth quarter, a 3-play drive for -2 yards went up 20-9. A 3-play drive for 7 yards went up 20-17. A 3-play drive for 1 yard when they're up 20-17. And then again, 3-play drive for 7 yards at the start of overtime. That is exactly the situation. If you ask me, what would the Colts want to have on the road in Arrowhead to have Jonathan Taylor, run to win at the end of games? And it simply did not happen for them. How did it not happen for them?
Well, in the fourth quarter, their first punt, that started with a -2-yard run. And then the other ones, they were trying to pass the ball. And of course, what does Spags do when backs up against the wall? There were some blitzes. And while it wasn't negative plays in terms of sacks and interceptions and in like wayward throws, it was just forced incompletions leading to punt. So I do think that Spags dialed up the pressure at the right time. There was no wow moments from Daniel Jones this entire game. Actually, only 3 attempts beyond 10+ air yards. He finishes like just above in positive EPA per play. But a lot of that was on a 3rd and 1 where Ashton Doolin picks up 48 yards, kind of almost like a leak route Most of that was yards after the catch. There was no like big time throws from Daniel Jones in this one. And then also with Jonathan Taylor, that was a pretty lackluster game from him too. Like nothing that was like his fault, I guess, but he had 58 rushing yards. He had one 27-yard gain. The rest of them really, really low in terms of success rate. So I think that's largely a Chris Jones stat. Also just going into Arrowhead, it's a very tough place to be. But also there was a big time decision that Shane Steichen had right before overtime where they're about the 45-yard line, 4th and 5. And Romo is like, hey, you should be aggressive here. There's about 5 minutes left. And they decide to punt the ball. And the Chiefs go all the way down, of course, on like an 85-yard play and kick a field goal to send this one into overtime. But Romo was saying, hey, if you go for it here, one, you pick it up. Now you can start melting the clock, go up another score, and you can win the game with the ball in your hands. Or if you get denied, then the Chiefs have the ball around midfield. If they score a touchdown, you have a chance to go and actually have another drive to go win it in regulation. They decided to punt the ball. The Chiefs kick the ball as time expires, and then the Colts decide to have the ball in overtime, which is kind of the consensus opinion now. But they go a 3-and-out, and then the Chiefs go down the field for that game winner. So it was like everything about this was like exactly how Chiefs games in January feel like. And that's why, despite their record and like where they are, how just vibes based watching them, they're still going to be favored to win every single game in the playoffs. Does that mean they're going to win them all? It's not, but this is still a very tough team to eliminate here.
So are you back to thinking, and maybe you never left, that the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC?
Yeah, I mean, if they are the 7th seed, like which team, like if they're in New England, would you pick the Patriots over the Chiefs? If they were in Indianapolis, would you actually pick the Colts over the Chiefs? I wouldn't. So this doesn't mean they're actually going to do it, but I would put them as they should be the favorite in every single game that they play against any AFC opponent.
They had 33 first downs in this game. The Colts only had 10. I mean, the Chiefs converted 9 of 18 third and fourth downs combined. Total yards, 494 for 255. Certainly a short field and getting a touchdown on that can skew some of those results, but not when you have as many, punt and 3-and-out drives that we just talked about here for the Colts. Again, that is what is most discouraging for me, is you can only play who is on your schedule. And we talk about this all the time, but really when you look at the Colts schedule now after 12 weeks played, their losses have been to the Rams, to the Steelers, and to the Chiefs. And really their only quality wins were the Broncos in week 2 by 1 point. And then I guess the depleted LA Chargers. But other than that, they really haven't played a single team all season long. I'm not saying I am out here on the Colts, but when you have such an identity like they had in the opening, again, 11 weeks of the season, and really these last 3-ish weeks, we've started to see some signs of, okay, can Daniel Jones, while he did have that nice touchdown pass in a very confined pocket early on in this game in the back of the end zone, if you have no big time throws and no downfield shots, which by the way, we talked about it heading into this game, the Chiefs were the best defense at preventing 20+ yard passes down the field, then, and you can't run the ball on top of it. And when you have this lead, then that certainly brings up some concerns of what is actually going to happen when you make the playoffs. Because we know like that is the new conversation here for the Colts. They're going to make the playoffs, but what is it going to do? What is going to happen once they do?
I guess just for Spags real quick, I mean, this is like another one of these like perfect game plans that he had and like really limited the Colts here, who by the way are number 1 in points per drive. Like what does he have to do to get another head coaching gig? Like, I mean, like whenever the Chiefs are up against the wall, what you can always count on Patrick Mahomes, and then second up on that list is you could always count on Spags, which is like another one of these years. They lost a lot of guys throughout the last couple off seasons. They don't have like a stacked edge rushing group right now. And once again, held Jonathan Taylor and Daniel Jones.
So we know once they made the trade for Sauce Gardner and got back Travarius Ward and got back their slot corner and Kenny Moore, we expected, this Colts defense to play a whole bunch of man coverage. And that's what you're supposed to play against the Kansas City Chiefs here. And Lou Anarumo, when I caught this game out of the corner of my eye, had some really fun and funky looks that did disrupt some of what Patrick Mahomes was doing early in the game.
Yeah.
Then I look at the box score, Hayden, and I see Rashee Rice for 8 for 141. After last week, when asked to win in isolated man coverage, he simply couldn't do it. So what was the difference this week for him? And Xavier Worthy's 4 for 59 on top of that.
Yeah, they used only man coverage like maybe 25% of the time, and they struggled with it. I think Ollie Connolly had the on-off splits with man coverage versus zone coverage, and the Chiefs were significantly worse against man coverage than zone coverage. There was a couple times where Xavier Worthy was kind of getting thrown around before the ball was getting there. There's also a time where Xavier Worthy caught the ball, and I thought he could have like rounded the corner and actually picked up yards after the catch, and just was not able to turn. It goes out of bounds. And there was one time where he's throwing his helmet because he was frustrated about his ankle injury. So I think Xavier Worthy is like simply not fully healthy right now. He's healthy enough to play, but he's not fully himself. And then ultimately at the very end of the game, Rashee Rice had some big moments down the stretch. Rashee Rice also is dealing with some type of like hamstring injury where he missed a couple plays, and then he might have been able to score a touchdown on his like final reception, but then he slides down. I'm not sure if he was sliding down because he wanted just to kick the field goal, but they were that would have been like a long field goal where I think a fully healthy Rashee Rice might have been able to like actually just hit it and score a touchdown there. The Chiefs play on Thursday, so we'll have to kind of pay attention for Rashee Rice if this was like a hamstring injury, quick turnaround to play, or if this was, hey, he was fine, he's got like kicked in the back of the leg or something like that, and these players are going to fight through that. But that would be pretty big if they can't get Rashee Rice here, because he is their explosive element over the middle of the field when he is healthy.
Rest of the way, we mentioned Cowboys and Texans over the next 2 weeks, and it's the Chargers, the Titans, the Broncos, and the Raiders here for the Chiefs. So you would assume that they quite handedly beat teams like the Titans and the Raiders, and maybe even throw in the Chargers with their offensive line situation right now. It's going to be a fun finish to the season for the Chiefs. That is for sure.
Last note, Kareem Hunt, thank you for your services once again. That is 34 touches, over 100 yards, and a touchdown here. It sounds like Isaiah Pacheco is going to be back here, but that's back-to-back seasons where he was, no doubt about it, fire him up as an RB2 for months at a time, dating back to last season too. So pretty cool.
I said that the Colts are going to make the playoffs. It is very difficult for them the rest of the way. Texans, Jaguars, Seahawks, 49ers, Jaguars, Texans, the remainder of the season. And after their victory today, spoiler alert, the Jaguars are just a game, I believe, behind here in the AFC South. Anything else you want to say about this game, or should we jump into the NFC version of this one?
Let's keep it moving.
All right. Well, somehow, some way, the Philadelphia Eagles make their fans happy in the first half and still, once again, cannot sustain it for all 4 quarters. Heard a lot about the frustration the last 2 weeks of these are the worst EPA and success rate games of the Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts era. It looked like, Hayden, that was over with. 21 points to 7 at halftime against the Dallas Cowboys. But in the end, 0 second half points. And Dallas brings it out on top in the fourth quarter. 17 second half points as they win 24-21.
Once again, the Eagles can't run the ball. Like, it's as simple as that. The pass game worked excellent. A.J. Brown should be happy. He was awesome in this game. Nearly had a second touchdown there. Devontae Smith was making plays down the field. I thought Jalen Hurts looked pretty good as well. Explosive passes down the field. You had the tush push stuff. You also had like go empty quarterback draws up the middle. So I thought Jalen Hurts played well. Both the wide receivers got home here as they should. It's the Dallas Cowboys secondary. But to Jerry Jones' credit, you bring in all these defensive tackles and you're missing Lane Johnson at right tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles. And all of a sudden, the Eagles running backs have a 17% success rate. I mean, you can't win football games if you have a 17% success rate. So in the second half, they don't score any points. Why? Because they were trying to run the ball in early downs, and it just kept not working. And all of a sudden, the game gets pretty tight because George Pickens on the other side creating a bunch of explosive plays, and all of a sudden you lose the game. So this team needs to be extremely pass heavy. Like, how many weeks in a row could we say the Eagles' ground game stinks? You keep mentioning it. They got going against the Giants. Everybody does. Go ask Jahmyr Gibbs today. And then in every other contest, the Eagles are terrible running the ball. We have to make an adjustment. We can't point the fingers at Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith in this game. They were all very good. The defense was largely pretty good this game as well. And they can't run the ball. And if you go run, and you punt the ball, then it's hard to win football games. So that was the Eagles game summed up pretty quickly.
So in the second half, if I can pull these statistics, they did drop back 27 times, and he did throw the football 24 times for 172 passing yards.
That's pretty good.
What I just saw in the first half was a lot of the middle of the field routes that people had been asking for in these recent weeks for A.J. Brown, and a lot of it working. And then again, just the inability to sustain whatever offensive identity you bring to the table for 4 quarters. is coming to a head. It feels like every single week here for the Eagles. Now, in previous weeks, their defense stepped up and kept them in these games and helped them win it. And you could argue that was the case here. I mean, even despite winning, the Cowboys still went 0 for twice inside the 10-yard line, inside the red zone. That typically doesn't happen here. However, we got a Saquon Barkley fumble off of a reception, and we got a Xavier Gibson fumble off of after he returns it from the 1-yard line. That is bad. That is bad football. It kind of feels like, though, Hayden, the Eagles have lost games in multiple different ways this season. Like, it hasn't just been because they don't have a running game. It's also because other times they don't have a passing game on top of it. So I think because there is frustration inside the Eagles, the fans feel frustration, and you're going to feel even more frustration after this one. And it's all warranted, despite this team being really good, because once again, if they were able to do what they did last year with many of the same pieces, albeit not having Lane Johnson and others this week, I'm sure everyone in that locker room feels like they could have the best team in the NFL if they just played like they did last year.
Well, the two other losses, Saquon was 6 for 30 and then 12 for 58, both scoreless too. It's like in all three games, the ground game has like been largely stuffed. So I do think that is real. And like, that's like the big difference of why last year's Eagles team would beat this year's Eagles team by a touchdown or 2 touchdowns. Because the ground game is just like, it's just non-existent. Like Saquon 10 for 22. Like that's just like totally not good enough.
Because it masks the inconsistencies that the passing game brings to the table for me.
For sure. But still, it's still a net win through the air. Like it's inconsistent because they throw the ball down the field so aggressively. But like today, it was very good. Like today's numbers through the air were excellent. I didn't think that Jalen Hurts had a bad game. Obviously, that huge fumble on special teams was a big deal. The Saquon Barkley fumble, which was on a reception, just checked down into the flats. Like you can't have those. And then I also want to spend a lot of time just talking about what the hell Dak Prescott is doing with George Pickens. It's insane. Like Dak Prescott right now, it's unbelievable quarterback play. He had 23 receptions. Only 3 of them were behind the line of scrimmage. It was all downfield, working over the middle, finding the correct outlet, and just dominating a Vic Fangio defense that is really deep now all of a sudden up front. They also had a Kevontae Turpin fumble on a like running back carry, like a true like under center running back carry through the B gap. So it wasn't like the Cowboys were just like in a perfect situation either. But really, like the story of this game for the Cowboys is, I mean, how much money is George Pickens gonna make? How could I rank CeeDee Lamb ahead of George Pickens right now? It's getting to that point. He's all of a sudden very good on these slant routes and yards after the catch. I thought he was always kind of good at that, and he was just like never used that way. And he's mossing guys down the field. They get down to the 1-yard line. It's him versus Adoree Jackson. Adoree Jackson has outside leverage. George Pickens still crosses him out, goes to the outside and scores a touchdown. George Pickens was flawless in this game. 9 targets for 146 yards and a touchdown. Caught all 9 of them. CeeDee Lamb, who still made an excellent play down the field. He's going to have better days than this. 2 more drops here. He's now at like, I think a season high or a career high in a season for most drops in a season. And he's missed for a lot of it. So it's like getting to the point where like, is George Pickens a top 10 NFL wide receiver? I'm running out of reasons to think otherwise. Like he's very good after the catch. And I believe he's 23 or 24 years old too. So the Cowboys hit a home run that DK Metcalf for George Pickens kind of swap with the Steelers. The Cowboys are now at least in the playoff hunt graphic because George Pickens has been such a baller this year.
It's been an interesting season to do that Thursday trade show and get a bunch of questions like when George Pickens was playing great without CeeDee Lamb and many people wondering if they should sell high on George Pickens. And to every single one, I said, absolutely not, because this is, the 2025 version of what we got last year with Jamar Chase and T Higgins. Now, I think you're able to ask which one is the Jamar Chase and which one is the T Higgins of that conversation this season, because George Pickens is on an absolute heater. And this should have been maybe the rest of the way, the stumbling block matchup for him, like it was in week 1. Obviously, DPI penalty in week 1. We don't get fantasy points for that. And he got all the fantasy points in this one. Hayden, question for you. The NFC is loaded. Do the Dallas Cowboys have a chance at 5-5-1?
I mean, their defense is definitely better. No question about it. Like Quinyon is such an upgrade for the team. I still think their secondary has issues and they're just so deep. So like right now, the Athletic gives them a 13% chance. I'm not going to pretend that I know more than the Athletics models and all their stuff, but right now they're 5-5-1. But As a reminder, the Bears have 8 wins. The Packers and Lions both have 7 wins. And then the Rams, Seahawks, and 49ers have 8 or 7 wins too. So they got to beat one of those teams. So they have their work cut out. It's currently a 13% chance. It'd be a very fun team to kind of sneak into the playoffs. I'm rooting for them because they're a very fun watch right now. Their defense is going to be at least like somewhat competitive. And then all of a sudden this pass game is just going to look like this with George Pickens this year. It's a very, very fun team to watch. So like them versus the Chiefs, I think on Thanksgiving, that's going to be make sure you're away from your family and tune in for that one.
Final comment. What were they thinking inside the red zone and like at the 1 yard line, not giving Javonte Williams any carries there?
Yeah. I don't know. Teams just do weird things. I don't want to like talk too negatively about anything with the Cowboys because like I keep seeing scheme advantages that they have. Like for instance, like the George Pickens, like kind of game winner type of play with the slant route. Like that gets open because it's him versus Quinyon Mitchell. They have Kevontae Turpin with a motion at the snap. That linebacker or safety that was running with Kevontae Turpin clips Quinyon Mitchell. Now George Pickens is running wild by himself out there. It's like all that type of stuff that like creating almost like a mesh pick play based off the motion is like just well schemed offense from Shoddy and Clayton Adams. So I'm not going to be second guessing pretty much anything that Dallas is doing in terms of the coaching staff.
As you said, the Chiefs next, and then it's on the road at the Detroit Lions on, I believe, another Thursday night football game after that. So they are back to back on Thursday night. All right, let's stay in the NFC playoff picture and talk about the NFC North showdown between the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. This one was a no contest as at home, the Packers win 23-6. It was close at halftime, 10-6, but 2 instances where the Packers defense and special teams stepped up in a massive, massive way. Early on, the Vikings were gashing the Packers defense on the ground, both Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones. But on a 3rd and 1, TJ Hawkinson tries a tush push, which is a skill. It fails. And then Jordan Mason is stuffed on a 4th and 1 in the red zone. So that brings us, like I said, to 10-6 at half, just a slight Packers lead. Immediately after halftime, the Vikings have a disastrous muffed punt by Miles Price right out of halftime. He's back as a returner, and then he allows the ball to land inside of the 5-yard line. And instead of getting out of the way, he goes up and tries to block one of the Packers gunners in the hopes of them not downing the punt. But instead, the punt then bounces and hits him in the back, and then the Packers recover. Emmanuel Wilson gets a goal line touchdown a couple plays later to bring that one to 7-6, his second rushing touchdown of the day. By the way, here's your crazy stat of week 12. Emmanuel Wilson is the first Packers running back, including Josh Jacobs, to rush for 100 yards since week 12 of last season.
No slander of Josh Jacobs. He's been totally fine. No slander.
That is pretty nuts. 28 carries, 107 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So they're up by 11, and now Christian Darrisaw and Donovan Jackson are ruled out of this game for the Minnesota Vikings. And so that's when the Packers pass rush is just starting to take over. Micah Parsons sack off the edge. Next snap, Micah Parsons destroys multiple linemen up the middle, which also gives Devontae Wyatt a sack. J.J. McCarthy at this point with 11 minutes to go in the 4th quarter, 36 net passing yards, 71 on the positive end, but then lost 35 on 5 sacks. Arif Hassan, quote from his Twitter feed, on throws between 0 to 9 yards so far, J.J. McCarthy's time to throw was 3.14 seconds, and I do not believe he had completed a pass there. Then we get the J.J. McCarthy turnovers. He throws an interception on the next series. Rashawn Gary hits his arm off the backup left tackle. That flies into the air, caught by a defender. Next series, J.J. McCarthy targets Jalen Naylor over the middle of the field. The ball kept climbing and climbing like it was filled with helium on the sideline. Hits a safety in the chest, and then the game is over. I mean, at the end of the day, JJ, 52 net passing yards. The Vikings, 20 carries, 93 rushing yards. Simply isn't going to do it. They're 4-7 on the season. And the Packers, once again, climb to 7-3 atop the NFC North.
The question only becomes like, how much longer could you look at the veterans on the roster for the Vikings and continue to trot out JJ McCarthy? And just to like make matters worse, you get the Sam Darnold revenge game against the Vikings next week, which means JJ McCarthy against Seattle's defense, which has been just phenomenal this entire year. So It's that bad right now. I'm not sure if they would go to Max Brosmer for next week, but just the way Kevin O'Connell keeps talking about it in the media, it seems like he's a little bit kind of distancing himself from JJ McCarthy. That's like almost like, hey, you got to just like kind of turn the quarter here. Everyone knows it. It's just not good enough right now. And I don't think there's anything about his traits and how close he is that we should expect anything to look better this year or beyond. So it's like a Zach Wilson-esque start. It is what it is. I wish it wasn't the case, but this is a really good environment to be in with this coaching staff. The offensive line's largely been pretty good. And then you have these 3 or 4 skill guys that are phenomenal. And you can't even play Justin Jefferson in fantasy right now. It's like getting to the point, like, is he the wide receiver 30 in my rankings next week? Like Jordan Addison, I think we can pretty much just like kiss goodbye at this point. Yeah, it's that bad.
6 targets, 4 receptions, 48 yards for Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison offers on 1 target. Jalen Naylor offers on 1 target. Adam Thielen offers on 1 target. There weren't like that many, at least as many as last week, just totally sailed passes. There were a few, don't get me wrong, but the interceptions were worse. And then the sacks were bad on top of it. Now, a lot of Vikings fans might say, well, you have the Packers pass rush. They had backup offensive linemen in there. Again, quoting Harif Hassan, when eliminating dropbacks with quick pressure, which means under 2.5 seconds, J.J. McCarthy's performance against the Packers this week ranked 344th of 346 quarterback performances this year in EPA per dropback and 331st in success rate. So, yeah, we are here at the end of the season. The Vikings clearly are not making the playoffs. Who knows what their conversation is like you said, against the Seattle, the Commanders, the Cowboys, and just the rest of the season. But doesn't necessarily matter what the next 6 weeks are. It's this entire offseason because a move will be made. It just depends on how big the move is. Is it for a veteran with a year left? Is it going all in for a younger quarterback a la Kyler Murray that other teams don't want to do? Or can you somehow creep into the top 10 and potentially land once again the quarterback 3 or quarterback 4, like when you drafted JJ McCarthy in his draft class?
Yeah, I think that's where we're at right now. So it's just, we'll see if he's benched. I think we should just start there. And if he was, and I think going back all the way, like there was a reason why the doctors cleared him. He was the emergency third quarterback, but he was medically cleared to play. And Wentz, who was struggling, they kept throwing him out there. And the whole time they kept saying, JJ's got to work on his feet. And that's been the root of all the problems right now. So I think they were warning us the entire time. And I think all of those worries have been like even worse.
Christian Watson was the leading receiver for the Packers. 7 targets, 5 receptions, 49 yards. Longest at 12, which is somewhat un-Christian Watson-like. Yeah. It was some outside breaking routes near the sideline, some inside breaking routes, and really nothing that was deep targeted down the field. I mean, again, Jordan Love only dropped back 22 times. I think the big conversation here is that he entered with an AC joint injury on his left shoulder. About half the handoffs that he gave Emmanuel Wilson were with just his right hand and giving it the backhand. Now it's not like that was every single time. It's not like he has a broken hand or a broken shoulder or any of this type of stuff. So I'm not sure the rhyme or reason to that, but again, it is bothering him. And you even saw his shoulder pads elevated just a little bit more because I'm sure he had some wrapping on the left side. And he made a couple big throws, like back in his end zone, a big 3rd down, buys himself a little bit of time, and then lofts it over the middle of the field to Dontavian Wicks for a 1st down. But Dontavian Wicks rotates in next to Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. But Watson is high variance in his past, but kind of becoming the most consistent element of this Packers wide receiver room.
Yeah, I think last note for me is just Emmanuel Wilson is to the point you cannot drop him the rest of the season. Like even when Josh Jacobs comes back, his value is way too high. He's better than any backup tight end, backup quarterback, 5th wide receiver on your roster. If he's in, he's automatic RB1.
Rookie wide receiver Matthew Golden did miss this game with multiple injuries. He only played 39% of snaps last week. So it seems like he is just flat out injured right now with multiple things. And so we'll see what his status is the rest of the way, because if he doesn't play, it's kind of honestly a lost season from him other than from some downfield vertical shots that we got. All right. So if that is one of the NFC contenders, let's flip over to one of the AFC contenders, the now 10-2 New England Patriots, as they beat the Cincinnati Bengals on the road 26-20. Actually, early in this game, we got some pretty bad quarterback play. We traded pick 6s in the first half. The first one was from Drake May, who had just 10 passing yards in the first quarter. He airmails an open Hunter Henry right into the arms of a safety who takes it to the house. But then a couple drives later, Joe Flacco returns the favor. He is so late to the flats, throwing to Taj Brooks. He stares it down, even pumps one time before he throws it. And then Jack Jones just jogs into the end zone after that. But if we're talking about real offense here and how the Patriots got, the other 19 points other than field goals, their tight ends totally shredded the Bengals backup linebackers, and they're even thin at that position. I mean, a combined 150 yards and a touchdown between Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper, with Henry owning 7 catches for 115 yards and 1 touchdown. When Drake May said the first fantasy team he ever had, Hunter Henry was his tight end, we maybe should have listened in the preseason, because Hunter Henry is his dude in this offense. But the overarching story, at 10-2, the rest of the season, the Patriots have had tremendous injury luck all year long. But in recent weeks, that has really changed to pivotal players. We all know about Milton Williams. He's been on injured reserve. I think he's missed 2 games, and he'll probably miss at least 2 more. But today, both left tackle Will Campbell and left guard Jarrett Wilson left on carts to the locker room.
No.
Will Campbell, like a right knee injury. I'm not sure what Jarrett Wilson's one. Those are critical spots with easily questionable depth behind them. And that left little room on offense to run the football. And also, they got moved on the defensive line, rushing the football. And that's why Chase Brown got 19 carries for 107 yards. And a lot of that was in the first half.
The Bengals defense against tight ends, I'm going to try to find the numbers for eventual stats for this film. It's got to be the worst of all time. I mean, they're averaging almost 19, 20 yards per game to fantasy tight ends. And like Hunter Henry was not heard from for a very long time. And then classic Steph Diggs only has 2 catches here, and it's a big rotation at receiver. So it's just like the same exact funnel for the Bengals defense existed once again. Anything about the Travion types of runs versus Ramondre and stuff? Like hit me with all of it. Hit me with all of it. 'Cause I know you want to get a lot of things off your chest here.
All right. This is for the true fantasy football sickles. Just overall, we're not going to have stats versus film this week. By the way, we're going to have 3 ranking shows ahead of the Thursday Thanksgiving game. So no waivers and no stats versus film. So consider this your mini stats versus film for the running back in the Patriots running back room. All right. Overall, Trevion Henderson basically owned all of the snaps. He got the first series, he got the second series, he got the third series. Ramondre popped in for some pass pro stuff and some other things. But there was this series, okay, inside the 5-yard line. The opening 2 plays, Trevion Henderson is in. He gets them down to the 1-yard line. All right. Then he's in for that 3rd down play. The Patriots call a timeout. Out of the timeout, Terrell Jennings pops in for 3rd and 1. He gets stuffed. 4th and 1. Ramondre Stevenson comes in. It's a passing play. They get a penalty on the defense. So it's an automatic 1st down. So we get another series. 1st and goal. Here comes Terrell Jennings. He comes back in. He is stuffed. 2nd and goal. Trevion Henderson sub back in. He does not get the football. 3rd and goal. Ramondre Stevenson back in. He gets stuffed at the goal line. 4th and goal. Ramondre Stevenson again stuffed. 4th and goal from the 1-yard line. There were other situations where like Ramondre Stevenson got them down to the 1-yard line inside the 10-yard line. So basically what I'm saying here is there was no clear cut, once we get inside the 10, we are bringing this running back in. It was chopped and change. Every person has their role. But if you do make a chart for it this week, Hayden, you will see that Trevion Henderson, albeit just 18 carries for 66 yards, and then 3 catches for 15 yards. I mean, that's 21 touches in this backfield in comparison to Mondre's 6 carries for 5 yards, and then Terrell Jennings 1 for 0.
Yeah, I would call it a win just because Ramondre didn't play that many snaps in general. And then next week you get the Giants, and then the following week it's the Bills. So those teams have not been able to stop the run recently. Now we'll see if Ramondre kind of his workload increases coming off of the toe injury. I think the Campbell injury though is huge. Like,
massive.
I mean, like they couldn't run the ball up the middle, and you just read off all those carries. I'm sure a lot of that was just bad blocking up front. Yep. And now Will Campbell, who has been a very good rookie for them, he's not going to be out there. They have no depth. So it's going to be a challenge right now. Like, there's a lot of pressure on Drake May to find the right answers here. And then I think Travion's going to have to hit the explosives and catch some passes, just because I do think that Ramondre and Terrell Jennings stuff, like the only carries they were getting were at the goal line. I don't think that's like a coincidence. I think there's something to that.
There were very few edge or tosses or sweeps runs today, which was kind of shocking since that was their best runs over the last few weeks. I mean, 21 touches with the Patriots backfield when 3 guys got opportunities in this game. I'm going to say that that's a win for Travion Henderson. And, they get one of the worst run defenses next week, albeit this Patriots run blocking unit can make bad run defenses look average or good against them. Okay. On the Bengals end, T. Higgins also left with a concussion in this game. He goes up and tries to one-hand it, gets slammed down by, I think it was Christian Gonzalez. It might have been Carlson Davis, and hits his head and immediately is ruled out. Mike Gesicki did have like 3 catches on the opening series, only finishes with 4 for 35. And then Andre Yoshivas, 4 for 61 as the team's leading receiver on 7. But I was impressed by the room that the Bengals offensive line created against this Patriots unit, 19 for 107 for him on the ground. And I just wonder, with however long Milton Williams is out, if we do need to kind of reset this Patriots top 5 rushing defense moniker that we do have at this moment.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense here. They've had a very easy schedule, so we do need to make some adjustments there. With the Bengals, it's Thursday Night Football, so T. Higgins, there's no way he's going to be cleared for that. Jamar Chase will come back. Did we learn anything about like Joe Burrow? Was there any reports that you saw, like how real his return is next week?
It seems like this has been the mission all along, is Joe Burrow playing on Thursday Night Football and returning for Thanksgiving. Joe Flacco left for a moment in this game with his pointer finger on his right hand hitting a helmet on a follow through. He had like a bandage on it. And in his post-game press conference, he kind of sounded like he knew that this might be his last start of the season. So
what a career.
Not the best way to go out here for Joe Flacco. Let's talk about the Chicago Bears beating the Pittsburgh Steelers 31-28. I didn't see a moment of this game. I do see Caleb Williams 3 touchdown passes to his name. I do see Kyle Monangai, totally outpacing DeAndre Swift on 12 carries, 48, and a score compared to 8 for 15 and nothing. Why was this game so close? What did the Bears do right? What did the Bears do wrong?
There's times where we've said, hey, this stat line doesn't look that good for Caleb Williams, but he was actually playing well. I would say the stat line looks like pretty good here. And I don't think he played all that well. He had a TJ Watt strip sack fumble in his own end zone. So that gave the Steelers points early. Look at the Steelers. They had a wild game plan, which I really, really liked. But with the Bears, there was just some big chunk plays created from them. DJ Moore had 2 touchdowns. One was on a coverage bust. One was on like a little whip route, which is a good route for him in the red area. Colston Loveland, this was one of my favorite plays in the entire game. They get him out against a safety. He just runs a slant route, creates enough separation, strong hands, follows into the end zone. So those were like the 3 touchdowns there. Caleb Williams, fairly inconsistent. The big thing though is even in his inconsistent games, he takes 1 sack here. It was the bad sack, but it
was 6 points to the other team.
But 1 sack. Last year, this game would have happened and it would have been 5 or 6 sacks, So this is like a trend in the right direction. That's why the Chicago Bears win this one 31-28. In terms of the running backs, because this is like the biggest fantasy conversation here, it was DeAndre Swift, then Kyle Monangai, drive for drive. It was pretty much that the entire game. DeAndre Swift has a fumble, and I'm not a huge DeAndre Swift guy. I will say, I was wondering why forward progress was not called. I was wondering how any referee saw the ball come out on his fumble. Regardless, ruled a fumble. The Bears didn't really change how they were using Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift. It was almost drive for drive without exception. Just for whatever reason, the Kyle Monangai drives lasted longer. So you guys are going to see plenty of tweets talking about, hey, Monangai had more snaps. Is this an overtaking? Sure, he played better. DeAndre Swift was not good in this game, but it was DeAndre Swift started. They rotated drives, and then for a couple plays here and there, one guy would sub in for a play or 2. But this is the drive-by-drive rotation that we've seen for the last couple weeks.
We've seen other drive-by-drive ones where Swift, got more snaps and more attempts and more routes. This was the inverse of that, where the first time in a season high with Swift playing, Kyle Monangai leads in snaps, leads in attempts, and leads in routes among this backfield. But I do think that's notable that, for a team that puts up 31 points and for a good offense, that They still want to make this a drive-by-drive running back room versus just giving it to the veteran when we're talking about a 7th-round rookie here as we go along for people's fantasy playoffs. That's for sure. I mean, DJ Moore has done nothing in previous weeks, and here he goes on 7 targets, 5 receptions, 64 yards, and 2 scores. And then we also, at some point, need to talk about the Adunze, the Loveland, and the Burden stuff here, too.
Okay, well, let's start with Adunze. Finishes with 9 targets here, only has 3 receptions. Were all of the incompletions his fault? No, of course not. But he still drops too many passes. And like his feet by the sideline, it's just not where it needs to be. So he's good in a lot of ways. He's clearly very athletic. He can go up and catch the ball. He's got a huge catch radius. You can also manufacture some stuff. He can run dig routes. I think he does create separation, like all that about Rome Odunze. The other points at the catch point by the sideline, man, it is just a roller coaster. And like, it is what it is. I hope it improves, but he cost the Bears a couple key plays. And this one, Luther Burden definitely was playing more. Let me see if I can pull up the final snaps. Yeah, he was 3rd in wide receiver snaps as usual. Olamide Zaccheaus was pretty much not heard of the entire game, barely is playing. And then Colston Loveland was out there for a lot more snaps than Cole Kmet. And I talked about the Colston Loveland play there. That was an excellent play. He seems like well on pace to being like an absolute dude at tight end. So he's still not going to be a full-time player. The Bears definitely want to be pretty balanced on offense. DJ Moore, Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, these aren't nobodies at wide receiver too. So he's like hard to like fully trust in tight end land, but I do think that the signs are here for a young rookie in Colston Loveland that he's going to be a total monster in the next couple of years here.
Yeah, I think all of the Luther Burden stats were in the first half, and then he didn't add anything in the second half. So we got a nice on pace numbers in the first 2 quarters, and then it seems like nothing in the second half. Okay, let's talk about the Steelers here because their running back room is interesting, where it's 18 carries for 68 yards and a score for Jalen Warren. Kenny Gainwell does technically have more with 10 carries and 92 yards, but I know 55 of those was on a fake tush push end around that we've seen, Mark Andrews do, and now Kenny Gainwell do for scores.
Yeah, the game plan for the Steelers was awesome. Like Arthur Smith, I know he catches a lot of strays, and I get it. But this one, he had the Chicago Bears, their top 3 linebackers were out. So what does he do? Like more misdirection and screens, make these guys, these backups, like run to the sideline and prove that they can tackle. And for the most part, they were just not able to. So early in this game, DK Metcalf, he had an end around, and then his touchdown was on a swing pass that was ruled a rush because it was actually thrown behind him. But they were also getting DK Metcalf on regular screens. He leaves with an ankle injury, so nothing too explosive for DK Metcalf, but it was like the type of game plan where you get the ball to DK Metcalf and prove that the Bears backups can actually go tackle. The same thing was true with all the Kenneth Gainwell stuff that you saw. The tush push 55-yarder was awesome. But you got a lot of guys underneath. Darnell Washington trucking dudes, Jalen Warren creating some space and trying to hurdle guys out at the second level. So there was like a lot of fun, interesting things that Arthur Smith was able to do with Mason Rudolph kind of being hidden from the game plan here against a pretty injured Bears defense that was missing like 2 of their top 3 corners, all 3 of their linebackers, an edge rusher, a defensive tackle. So it was a pretty bare bones defense there. And they put up a good fight, but ultimately just like did not have enough like true superstars on offense.
Steelers just 17% chance right now, according to The Athletic, of making the playoffs. I mean, they have the Bills and the Ravens over the next 2 games. Lose one of those, and it's basically over. I mean, they now might be forced to finally reset. I know that there was a report a couple weeks ago that they already want to bring Aaron Rodgers back, but this Mike Tomlin thing of willing his team in the margins of making it to the playoffs, it truly might have to end finally if they don't make the playoffs this year.
They cannot be serious with bringing Rodgers back. I mean,
I'm with you, dude.
For what? We don't need to see the Steelers in the playoffs, But I will say early in this game, Rodgers is out and like they've been written off. Here comes the Ravens, yada, yada. And then like you have that crazy DeAndre Swift fumble. You have that Caleb Williams fumble with TJ Watt. And like all of a sudden you're like, is Tomlin going to do this thing again with all the turnovers going in his favor and winning it out with a bunch of nobodies? And yeah, they just don't have enough superstars right now.
I think the Bears are the most interesting playoff picture right now because if the season ended today, they are technically winning the NFC North at 8-3. But then when you look at the underlying numbers and the models, again, the Athletic playoff picture has them at winning the division at just 17% chance. And then just making the playoffs overall at a 54% chance. And it's all because of the schedule that they have left. It's the Eagles, then the Packers, then the Browns defense, then the Packers, and you close out with the 49ers and the Lions. So basically a coin flip here, despite all the positives and all the negatives and the roller coaster that the Bears season has been for them, again, at 8-3 to even make the playoffs this season.
Yeah, right now I think they have a negative point differential, but they're still the leaders in the division. And unfortunately, that Browns game, that's their easiest game, but that's out of conference. It's like the least important game on their schedule too. So like you got all the guys that you're facing in the wild card round, perhaps the 49ers and Lions to kind of close out the season. It's going to be a close one. But even if the Bears didn't make the playoffs, like the fact that they're showing this much growth, and I think Ben Johnson had an excellent game in general here. They're definitely on pace with their rebuild.
And they should get their 2 top cornerbacks next week. And so maybe that, again, resets some of these defensive trends that we've seen with them where, you know, a Pittsburgh Steelers team shouldn't score 28 points on them. Albeit, I did call that TJ Watt sack fumble touchdown earlier in the week because we've seen, you know, Caleb have the strength, the toughness, the flexibility to avoid all these wrap-up tackles by some of the best edge rushers in the league. And it was TJ Watt in a losing effort to force one of those into a very, very negative outcome. All right, I've got 2 more games just for the people and the discourse. Let's talk about Shedeur Sanders as the Cleveland Browns on the road, kind of, beat the Las Vegas Raiders 24-10. This all started even before the game kicked off. When asked in his pregame TV interview what he wants to show Browns fans, Shedeur Sanders in his last line responded, quote, "I'm who they've been looking for." Now, if we look at the game, Shedeur Sanders truly did make enough plays to win this game, and maybe most importantly, did not make the mistakes to lose it. Early in the contest, 3rd and 8, Raiders send 0 blitz. I'm sure watching the Baltimore Ravens last week, and Shedeur moves versus pressure, versus a free rusher, throws a rainbow to Isaiah Bond, who comes down with it and is tackled at the 1-yard line, 52 yards in the air, and Quinshon Judkins closes it with his second 1-yard touchdown after a great early punt return, put the ball inside the red zone on the previous drive. All of that is in Wildcat without a quarterback even on the field. Another later on, a rollout, 39-yard pass to Jerry Jeudy, who himself makes one of the worst plays you'll see all day, an awful mistake. He fumbles it after coming to a complete stop and forgetting that everyone on defense is actually moving at full speed. He gets it peanut punched by Jeremy Chin, and the ball's on the ground, and the Raiders recover. Shedeur had some other extended plays where he dumped it off to Harold Fannin. You're going to love looking at the Harold Fannin tape tomorrow because it's about 1-yard receptions that he takes 14 yards for these extended first downs, just bumper carring and bouncing off defenders. And then Shedeur Sanders had a 66-yard touchdown pass in the box score because it was a negative 5-yard air pass to Dylan Sampson, and that was his first NFL touchdown throw. So on the day, 11 of 20, 209, 1 touchdown, and 1 really bad interception that was to a edge rusher that dropped into Jerry Jeudy's lane that Shedeur Sanders simply did not see. But the most notable thing, just 1 sack taken against Max Crosby and a defensive line who has some players. Because, again, Shedeur mostly climbed or went laterally when moving in the pocket. So other than 1 sack and 1 interception and just a couple wayward throws and maybe some weird decisions, it was an overall solid day, and I would say more watchable than we had in a lot of other Dylan Gabriel games.
Yeah, the negative plays is like the big thing here because the Raiders were only going to score so many points just given their offense and how, you know, the state of the Browns defense right now with Myles Garrett. So Shedeur, as long as you don't create a bunch of negative plays, you're going to have a chance to win this one. And then you throw in a couple of explosives down the field and yeah, more than enough. So like really cool to see them get a win here. And we'll see what happens when Dylan Gabriel comes back and which route they want to go. I'm not sure if they had any updates with that. But just the 1 sack, I think might be like my favorite metric of them all.
Kevin Stefanski was asked after the game who's going to be the starter. He declined to comment. I'm sure that's because Dylan Gabriel, you know, has not cleared concussion protocols, and he really doesn't have to have that answer until Dylan Gabriel does. So if Shedeur didn't make enough mistakes to lose this game, Geno Smith and the Raiders offense certainly did. 10 sacks taken.
10
by Geno Smith.
Come on.
10. Myles Garrett has 18 sacks already on the season. And it's not like he got 3 or 4 or 5 like we've seen him in other contests. This was just pitiful. I mean, so pitiful. He had 10 sacks despite a time to throw of 2.63 seconds.
What are you supposed to do? I mean, what are you supposed to do with that?
And he missed Trey Tucker on multiple downfield touchdowns. Like, some of those weren't when he was pressured. Other times, sure, maybe he had someone closing in his face and he could have stepped up and just thrown an accurate pass, would have led to a score. Honestly, Trey Tucker probably had 200 air yards that just were not completed. It's a pathetic, unwatchable team. The only cool part about it is Ashingenti trucking defenders, making people miss after the catch, and forcing cornerbacks and defensive backs off of him in the receiving game, which he gets 8 for a 58 and a pointless 4th and 2 receiving score. But then he even leaves with what looked like an ankle injury at the end of this game after getting rolled up on and twisted in the other direction. So I know we have this Raiders conversation every single week. I actually felt that Ani Connolly had one of the best takes about it, that, quote, "It is genuinely hilarious that Tom Brady spearheaded every decision that has made the Raiders the most directionless and unwatchable franchise in the league. And he's just sat in Dallas calling the game of the most well-run Philadelphia Eagles team in the league." Next tweet: "I think having your football czar split time between calling games, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, YouTube, crypto, and Birmingham City, which is the worst football club in the entirety of England, Europe." Sorry, that's just me adding those notes. Is not smart.
Where's your notes on Saudi Arabia, Josh?
I think Birmingham City is even worse than Saudi Arabia, but go ahead.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, like, even like the Ashingenti numbers under the hood, negative yards before contact here, and then you pick up the injury too. So I mean, it's like, what exactly are we doing when the offensive line is reached this bad? It's like,
how are they projected for 20 points? I mean, we asked this question numerous times this week.
I know.
At no point did it look like they were going to achieve the 20-point status that the sports books invested into the Raiders at home this week.
I'm telling you, they were thinking that they were getting the big time negative plays from Shador that, just credit where it's due, did not happen with him. I got to ask a question though. Brock Bowers, I mean, you're trailing the entire game here. He, I think, bails himself out late with 55 receiving yards, but I mean, they dropped back 54 times. How does he only have 55 receiving yards? Like, that's like, what are we doing here?
Oh, I'm with you. I mean, Chip Kelly's a part of this. Pete Carroll's a part of this. Tom Brady, the offensive line, Geno Smith, all of it. It's not like Brock Bowers like had any drops or really negative plays in this game. It's just the offense is not functional, period. And yeah, he had 18 yards in like their final pointless drive, but there's nothing I can point out. And Michael Mayer even left halfway through this game too. So there's nothing I can point to that says this offense is good enough to even get us there with any sort of fantasy relevance on a weekly basis or consistency. I don't know who they are. Yeah.
No, I know. I mean, if Genti is out of the picture, like Brock Bowers, but I'm breaking ties against Brock Bowers at this point. There's a couple like elite. I mean, Trey McBride is just like in his own planet. But then that next tier, it's fair to question if Brock Bowers should be the tight end 2 or tight end 3 right now. I mean, the 55 dropbacks and you get 55 yards is like, I mean, that's not good.
On the Browns end, obviously Quinshon has a 66-yard reception. Quinshon Judkins does get 16 carries for 47 yards and 2 scores. Again, 2 Wildcat goal line touchdowns. He kind of got banged up too late on. He took this weird hit that he was spinning left and then came back, but that is something for us to monitor because his game is all about volume. They are 3-8. This was one of the few games, potentially the rest of the way, other than the Tennessee Titans, which is going to be the number 1 team and the number 3 team right now in Tankathon as they face off here in 2 weeks. So we definitely need Quinshon playing in that game against the Titans.
Yeah, Raiders now 5th in the draft order right now. Well, probably looking at quarterbacks, I'd guess.
I would assume so. I mean, this was truly a freaking unbelievably bad Geno Smith performance. If you do not watch it, but if you do,
there's no reason to.
You will see up on everybody. 7 yards beyond his wide receivers, and then him getting frustrated about the whole thing. The fall off has been simply incredible. Okay, speaking of the fall off, we got it last week with Sam Darnold.
Oh, there it is.
Against the Rams defense, Obviously, a very difficult matchup. But here, Hayden, a layup matchup we were hoping for, albeit the Tennessee Titans kept this one close against the Seattle Seahawks, 30-24. So bounce back spot for a lot of Seahawks offensive players.
It was insane what JSN was doing. And sometimes it was against corners. Other times they were able to get the Tennessee Titans safeties one-on-one with JSN. So JSN goes crazy, 63-yard touchdown. He has another one. There was plays over the middle where nobody was near him. It was just one of those games where you just wonder, like, why is no one ever near JSN? It's because, oh yeah, he's like really smart, and then he is well schemed around, and then his releases. It was a perfect performance from JSN. So like, as Jonathan Taylor has his iffy game and JSN goes for $167, then the Offensive Player of the Year award should kind of tilt in JSN's favor at this point. There was really nobody else in the receiving game worth mentioning, but we did get Kenneth Walker. And the first 3 drives plays all but one snap. I think it was like 17 of 18. Charbonnet goes in there, classic 2-minute drill stuff. And then late in the game, Charbonnet does have a rushing touchdown. But that was a weird, I've never seen that sequence with the Seahawks. The first 3 drives, all Kenneth Walker. Now, our boy Holani, he leaves with a hamstring injury really early in this game. Maybe that would have changed some things. But it was a lot more Kenneth Walker. He was a bunch of explosive plays. In this one, 71 yards on the ground, and then another 30 yards through the air. Does not score the touchdown because A.J. Barner, absolutely annihilates a guy as a run blocker on a Charbonnet touchdown. But that was just something that we have not seen, like this version of the rotation. So I don't know what it means. Kenneth Walker only played like 64% of the entire games.
That's snaps, a lot more than he has.
But that's an upgrade. In the first 3 drives were all Walker, like all Walker. So we'll see.
Still, Zach Charbonnet with the short touchdown.
Yeah.
When Ken
watch
Walker
that
does
with
all
AJ
the work
Barner
to get them there. Yeah.
Oh my God, Barner is a monster.
The snap, compared to, let's say, week 10, that's a bump in 23% from 41% up to 64%. So look, are we up to a 70% workload here for Kenneth Walker and owning everything inside the 10-yard line? No, we're not. But are we attaching this to the coach speak that said, hey, we got to get Ken Walker the football more, along with Ken Walker being this team's best running back, most efficient, most explosive, 11 for 71 in this game, along with 3 catches for 30 yards. That is notable to me. Now, again, Seahawks are not going to be a fantastic rushing offense every single week. And, they face the Minnesota Vikings next week, so we'll see what happens. But this is better than probably any version of the split backfield so far that we've gotten for K9.
Yep. Yeah, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel where maybe he does end up being like the guy. Like the games get more important for the Seahawks. They're 8-3 at this point. So they got some good jockeying to do for the division, for bye weeks, for the wild card seeding and stuff. So the games are only going to get more important for Kenneth Walker. And maybe they say, all right, Charbonnet, you were able to keep Kenneth Walker mostly healthy this year. Now it's time to go on a Super Bowl run, and we got to get Kenneth Walker up to speed.
The JSN stuff, he's the team's just pass catchers. Let's not talk running backs here. Pass catchers. He has 167 yards and 2 scores.
Yeah.
The other receivers, Cooper Kupp, 2 for 22. A.J. Barner, 2 for 18. Elijah Herrera, 1 for 5. And then Rashid Shaheed, 0 on 2 targets. That's just crazy.
It's insane. It's insane. It is actually insane. I think that he's now the Seahawks franchise record for single season receiving. It's week 12 last time I checked.
Wow. All right. On the Titans end, you and I did a deep dive on Cam Ward this past Tuesday. I'm looking at the box score. Cam Ward, leading passer, 20-42, 256, 4 sacks taken, 1 touchdown. Cam Ward, leading rusher, 6 carries for 37 yards and a score. Also, I see Cam Ward leading receiver. No, I don't. I'm just kidding. But talk me through this Cam Ward performance.
Cam Ward looked like the first overall pick in this game. And they have an offensive coordinator search and a head coaching search coming up. What the Tennessee Titans ownership is going to do is they're going to take DVDs, put the game on this in email, and send everything that they have about this game to every candidate known to man, because this is the game that you could see the vision with Cam Ward. And what was interesting about this one is a lot more creativity with Cam Ward as a scrambler and just buying some time outside the pocket. His arm talent this entire season has been very good. There's been some huge corner shots. This one, there was a seam shot to, I think it was like James Prochet over the middle, which was a total dart to James Prochet, by the way. We got like Xavier Restrepo wide open. Like he was like the UDFA guy. But anyways, there was plays out of structure that were just awesome from Cam Ward. There was a 3rd and 4, which was like more like Mahomes-esque, where he throws it across his body. He took the still image of him. He's like the Jordan logo out of bounds, throwing across the field. There was just a lot to like from Cam Ward. And this is the Seahawks defense that is top 5, no doubt about it, right now. And he's thrown to absolute nobodies here. Chimere Dike did have a receiving touchdown. He has absolute wheels. You see that on the punt return touchdown that he had as well. He's like the only like receiver that can do anything right now. And then Gunnar Helm is kind of like this big lumbering tight end who's kind of like in the reliable kind of role. But this was just a excellent Cam Ward game. One of the games that, if you guys haven't watched him on all 22, watch this one, because this is like the game where the offseason, we're going to look at all the EPA numbers and people are going to have lots of questions, and like there should be some questions, but you can see how long-term this one could work out and be a really fun watch. So by far his best game of the season, and can't wait for you guys to watch it.
Yeah, if you look on Tankathon, Titans are the 1st overall pick. The Giants are the 2nd overall pick. To me, drafts get really interesting when either the top 2 picks are teams that already have quarterbacks of the future. And that's the case here. Now, is there going to be a quarterback worth that? To someone, probably. So that's going to make phone calls and trades and everything of the sort really, really exciting. And yeah, I don't want people to look at the Titans most likely having the number 1 overall pick and saying, well, that means Cam Ward's a bust. They just do not have an offensive identity at this moment, and they have to kind of figure that out before, to me, declaring that it's a Cam Ward problem, because it's an offensive problem right now. Yeah. And just like look at all the wide receivers surrounding him, look at, the offensive line not playing to all the investments, because with how much they invested in free agency and then draft picks on the offensive line, if that's not a top 16 unit, then that takes away all of the investments that they could have made to other positions, whether it be, wide receiver, whether that be to defensive players, cornerbacks, just having startable cornerbacks on the roster.
Anybody.
So, yeah, it's just the distribution of the resources has not turned into top end position groups at any spot right now.
Yeah, and Cam Ward needs a lot of development himself too, but just the signs of the flashes, like grading to the flashes, you saw that with Cam Ward today. I mean, their team needs list would be literally every single position. So they got a lot of work cut out. I would trade down about 4 or 5 times in a row and get as many fringe 1st, 2nd round picks as you possibly can, because they need to hit on a lot of picks in a row to have a chance.
All right, let's stick in that division, because as of this moment, the 7-4 Jacksonville Jaguars, without the number 2 overall pick in Travis Hunter, have a 72% chance of making the playoffs right now, according to The Athletic, after their narrow overtime victory over the Arizona Cardinals, 27-24 on the road. Just the stat line for Trevor Lawrence, okay? 18 of 30, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 3 sacks, and a fumble 6. It was a true Trevor Lawrence roller coaster game. I mean, after an early, perfect 4-play drive where I thought the Cardinals were already in Cabo San Lucas defensively, because it included like a 30-yard pass to Britton Strange and then 60 yards of Travis Etienne's entire total for this contest. After that, it was so many downs and then a few ups. Okay. Next series for the Jaguars, Trevor near his own goal line is hit by a blitzing safety, because Nick Ross did that constantly in this game. The blitz hits him as he's releasing the football. It's either a pick 6 or a fumble 6, but it falls into the hands of Walter Nolan, the Cardinals' 1st-round defensive tackle, who returns it for a score. By the way, Walter Nolan doesn't finish this game again with a knee issue. Damn. And this is kind of becoming a common thing. He does awesome stuff and then leaves contests. So hopefully that changes. Another drive ends with an unblocked Budda Baker sack that either the protection, the center, or Trevor Lawrence just does not recognize. And at some point, I think Anton Harrison missed this entire game, but then Walker Little, their left tackle, also leaves this contest. And so out of the half, the Jaguars march down the field with completions to Parker Washington and Britton Strange, but it ends with an end zone interception on the back shoulder of Jacoby Myers because Calais Campbell and all 7'2" of him tips it at the line of scrimmage. He had another 2 interceptions. He was baited into one on like a seam bender by Akeem Davis Gaither, like a backup linebacker or someone who's changed teams multiple times here for the Arizona Cardinals. And then Budda Baker just reads the eyes of Trevor on a 3rd down sitting at the sticks. It feels like to me, defenses know that in this Liam Cohen offense and with the wide receivers that they have at this moment, they're just not throwing down the field. So they're kind of just sitting in this line, in this intermediate space. And when you have someone like Budda Baker who can kind of hawk those plays and just dive in front of it. But then like there are some good too. The next series, 3rd down in the red zone. Again, Nick Rollis sends a 0 look. Trevor Lawrence throws off his back foot as Jacoby Myers is making his break. Touchdown pass in isolated coverage. Also, touchdown in the 4th quarter, I believe, to put them up on the scoreboard. Perfectly steps up, evades the pass rush, a very well-covered ball on a Parker Washington route that's running away from him in the opposite direction, and he catches it for a score. So I get it. Trevor was horrible in this game. He had just enough positive moments for them to have this victory, because if they lost this game, I think the rest of their season would be plenty of questions. But now they're in the driver's seat to potentially have a playoff berth here.
It seems like it's Chiefs, Chargers, Jacksonville largely for 2 of 3 spots remaining. And then the Texans and Bills. And there's obviously a lot of scenarios that can play out, but largely 2 of those 3 teams are going to make it. Did this game make you feel like Jacksonville is going to hold on to one of the 2 spots that are available to them?
No, not really. I mean, all these teams have their flaws, but like when Jacksonville is a flawed team, it like really shows up. There was another turnover on downs too, where the Jaguars were up by 3 with about 1:40 left to go on a 4th and 1. Instead of kicking a field goal of about 40-ish yards, Liam Cohen elects to go for it, which the models say that that's a good thing to do, because in that case, if you kick it and the Cardinals march down, then you lose by 1. And there's really no difference in that versus, just kicking a field goal and setting that in overtime, which, by the way, is exactly what happened here. And they won in overtime. But even that one, it was like a sprint right type thing. And Trevor basically throws an uncatchable pass, like not even in the vicinity. And at the same time, there were offensive penalties that would have brought back a positive play in that regard. Like that is where the Jaguars keep getting to me all season long. Always. It was with, the wide receivers early on. It was with Travis Hunter. It was with Brian Thomas Jr. And this time it was on defense. Like they had another 7 penalties for 60 yards. The Cardinals opened the game with like 4 rushing first downs, 4 passing first downs, and then 4 first downs that were given on penalties on top of it. Another one where on their own 35-yard line, a 4th and 1, they were clearly going to punt, but Jonathan Gannon thinks, he's some genius. And so he's like, okay, we're going to draw them off sides. And guess what? They jump off sides.
I know. That's why like Jacksonville, like they're chaos team. They're like kind of fun to watch and they're winning a lot of games, but it's like, all right, at some point you gotta be a little bit more serious for me to like take you serious.
Yeah. The number one thing here from a fantasy standpoint is that the Bachel Tootin stuff last week was just a tease, and Travis Etienne did get the vast majority of the work. 15 carries, 86 yards. Again, 45 of that was on the first series. And he got his, I think, 15-yard receiving touchdown. Yes, also on the first series. But really, that went the same as like the entire Jaguar situation, where it was like one great series and then they all did nothing. And then another scoring series and they all did nothing on top of it. So Bachel Tootin popped in there here and there. But obviously Etienne was the vast majority of the snaps and percentage getter in this game.
Yeah, that's going to be a 7 of 11 weeks where he's a top 12 finishing running back for Travis Etienne. 7-11.
And then Britton Strange, once again, the team's leading receiver in this game for another week.
Yep.
Off of IR. 5 catches, 93 yards. Parker Washington, 5 for 71 and 1. Jacoby Myers, 4 for 50 and 1 in the end. On the Cardinals side, I mean, Michael Wilson, you see it, 10 catches, 118. They did have a chance in overtime, but a 4th and 4. Again, what the Jaguars were doing were just kind of sending unblocked pressures too, and they were getting to Jacoby Brissett. He just like lobs it up to Greg Dortch. He has no one to throw the football, but it's a Hail Mary to Greg Dortch and basically triple coverage. and he can't come down to it. I still want to give Jacoby credit, man. Like, he opens this game 12 of 14 for, 95 yards. He finishes 33 of 49 for 317 and a touchdown, does take 6 sacks. He leaves for a series because Devin Lloyd annihilates him on the sideline. It was a legal hit, but just totally annihilated. And then, 140, no timeouts in his back pocket. He does lead them to at least tie the game and put it in to overtime, and they just can't do anything with their drive in order to, at least kick a field goal and tie it up to send it to 3 possessions. But like, it kind of sucks to be the Jacoby defender for people who don't care about fantasy football, because, these have been, I think, multiple games dating back to the Green Bay Packers where he plays quite well and keeps them in these contests, and it's not enough. And I think as a starter, he's 1-5 so far. He's 1-5.
Nobody cares if you have Trey McBride though, or Michael Wilson.
True.
It's okay, but we're bearing the lead. How confident are you that Marv is actually better than what we're getting with Michael Wilson? Like, I mean, this is insane. He doesn't drop anything. We'll start there. He's reliable against zone coverage. They can move him around the formation. He's mossed some guys at times here. Is there a limit to how athletic he is? Absolutely. Name the other cons to his game. Pretty good player to me. Like, I'm looking at it once again, another good route and another good route, and catches the ball and another good route. And then they move him around the formation because he's capable of doing that. He seems like a smart guy. Like, this is a pretty good football player to me. I don't know.
Yeah, no. Michael Wilson can definitely play in the league. He makes, and like you said, very consistent. And I think Marv, unfortunately, has been inconsistent so far. Like, we thought he was a technician, and if you can't separate because he's more of this bigger body and not overly explosive type player, then he has to come down with all the tight window targets, and he can't have just, open drops. And this year he's had too many open drops. I will say it's tough to just look at the Marvin Harrison, I think, raw stats in games that Jacoby has started, because he did leave a couple. And then, one of them was against Seattle, which he had some drops and then some other difficult catches. But then I think from like start to finish in a game that he has played with Jacoby, like that Dallas game was really good. 7 of 10 targets for 96 and a touchdown. So maybe they have 2 wide receivers moving forward, Hayden, with Trey McBride. Just overall, it is so much better that you can actually have 2 passing options and receiving options in the Cardinals offense with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback versus what Kyler Murray was bringing to the table.
Yeah, I'll just say Michael Wilson is much more quarterback friendly than Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison's ceiling is obviously infinitely higher, and like, we'll see if Marvin can.
He had
do
a
that.
sweet double move in overtime.
Yes,
that set them up into big time territory to potentially tie the game. This is a big week. It's going to be feast week over on Underdog. If you've never played on Underdog Fantasy, this is the perfect time to do it. We're in over 40 states right now, and specifically over 20 states with prediction markets. Maybe 6 months ago, 2 years ago, if you're listening or watching to this program, you could not play an Underdog. That has all changed. Texas, Florida, Georgia, California, you can look at Virginia, South Carolina, all these places. If you're in one of those states, play $5 in Underdog and get $75 in bonus cash just from me if you use promo code the show or click the link in the description down below. Make time with your family just a little bit more fun, Hayden, and play in the Dog app.
Yeah, if you don't like hanging out with your family, you always got Team Underdog on your couch.
There it is. Also, Hayden, I noticed no Brentley on the program this week. Did you kick him off because of what happened in the USC Oregon Ducks game?
No, we don't talk about that game, of course. Okay. By the way, their tight end prospect went crazy on us. So are you surprised by that?
Nope, because Don Kincaid did that back in the day. I remember watching this. Can't wait.
Oh.
All right. We didn't get many eyeballs on the rest of these games, but we do just want to ask some things we're going to look forward to talking about in this week's rankings episodes. Let's first kick off in a much tighter game than the sportsbooks had in mind. The Detroit Lions improved to 7-4, just barely in overtime, beating the Jameis Winston-led New York Giants 34-27. Hayden, I know we need to talk about Jahmyr Gibbs and his 15 carries for 219 yards and 2 scores, including a 69-yarder to the house. But I just quickly want to bring up Jameis Winston. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Because last week on this very program, I pointed out that he had like 4 dropped interceptions last week, and it was like a brutal game against the Packers, and he still had some positive moments in it. This one seemed almost all positives in that He had 366 yards passing on just 18 completions. And the piece de resistance is a Jameis Winston 33-yard catch, 1 reception, going up and mossing a defender, and not just that and coming down with it, but then also breaking a tackle on the way to the end zone. One of the best non-passing quarterback plays I've seen in my lifetime.
It really reminded me of the Bartolo Colon home run, where it's just like felt like culturally relevant. It was sensational. I could not believe it when he caught it. I didn't think that he was going to get into the end zone. He had to like shrug him off of him, and then before diving in there, that was unbelievable stuff. You only get to do that with Jameis Winston back there. And then he was rifling the ball down the field in this one. I was facing Wan'Dale Robinson, my most important league, and I could not believe the stat line that Wan'Dale Robinson, I like refreshed my Yahoo app, and then like Wan'Dale already had like 16 points. I said, what the hell is going on here? But that's just the Jameis Winston experience.
Yeah. I mean, look, I am the first to point out when his highs and lows, and there's many lows. This one, it's a high, and he's so much fun to watch, especially as a short time starter who knows what happens moving forward. And this might be the last Jameis Winston performance we have of the season. But what a note to end on with that, Hayden. What a note to end on. We won't even talk about the Tyrone Tracy, Devin Singletary stuff. 20 for 62 for Tracy, 14 for 47 here for Singletary. On the other end with the Lions, and if you played and faced Jahmyr Gibbs this week, I mean, a 40-plus burger he posts in fantasy football is nuts.
Is there a bigger Jahmyr Gibbs whisperer than me right now? Ranked him running back 12, finishes running back 12, rank him RB1, finishes RB1. I'm on fire with my Jahmyr Gibbs rankings.
And if we're talking process, if you told me that the Detroit Lions scored 34 points against the New York Giants, I would have expected Dave Montgomery to at least hit 20 rushing yards. And instead, he only gets 5 carries for 18.
Well, I thought you were going to go Jamison Williams. If they score 34, you would think that JMO would not have the same amount of receiving yards as the YouTube commenters.
I mean, crazy stuff. I didn't get to watch this game, so I will go back and watch it and see how both of those happen, and namely the Jamison Williams stuff on 3 targets, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think despite a couple of drops, still ends up with 13 targets, 9 receptions, 149 yards, and 1 score. We all know the Detroit Lions are making the playoffs. We did talk about how the NFC North is in a triple lock here. They are 80% to make the playoffs. The Packers at 77%, the aforementioned Bears at 54%, and then to win the division, the Lions 43%, despite being 7-4 and technically the worst record of the bunch. The Packers 39% and the Bears 17%. Pick one right now. Who wins it?
Oh man, I'll probably go the Lions. They're at home on Thursday against the Packers here. That's going to have huge implications there, and just the Packers are just a little bit beat up right now.
Okay, let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens, who are, I'm going to say, limping to 6-5.
Limping. Yeah.
As much as we all said that, hey, their season starts after the bye week when they actually a +1 after that got Lamar Jackson back. You know, in my head, I was fantasizing that, it would just all look just like it did last year, close to MVP Lamar with Todd Monken and all that stuff. I mean, it's another game of him, 13 of 23, 153 yards. Derrick Henry only averages 3 yards a carry, does get 2 touchdowns on top of it. Where's the offense here? I mean, I know you didn't get to watch, but like this is kind of troubling.
It is troubling. That said, the Ravens are in first place in the division already. Already. It's weeks. It only took to week 12 and they already have the division lead. So they're going to hold on to it. But I think the more interesting conversation is, okay, we know that the Chiefs can go on a run out of the wild card spot. Could the Ravens realistically go on a run? The defense can. Lamar Jackson has to be healthy though, because Lamar Jackson is raising a pretty average-ish offensive line. Derrick Henry's not the Pro Bowl level running back that he once was, and then the depth behind Zay Flowers at pass catchers not that good. So if they're gonna go on a run as a wild card team or as the 4 seed, then they got to have a healthy Lamar Jackson, and we just haven't seen it. And once again, only 11 rushing yards here. I mean, this used to be an automatic 50, 60, 70 rushing yards. And since that injury, it's been 35 and less.
Maybe this is the inverse of Ravens teams we've seen in the past make the playoffs. Because you remember Lamar's first MVP season, they get the number 1 seed. nearly go undefeated, and then they just have that terrible performance against the Tennessee Titans and go out immediately. We know what happened last season against the Buffalo Bills and the Mark Andrews drop on the 2-point conversion or whatever it was. Maybe here they limp into the playoffs and then play their best football for a 3 or 4 game stretch.
Well, I will say their defense right now, they had the Dolphins held them to 6. The Vikings held them to 19. The Browns held them to 16, and the Jets held them to 10. So, like, those aren't like the greatest opponents there, but that's 4 games in a row under 20 points. And they obviously have a lot of talent on defense. So it really just comes down to like how healthy is Lamar Jackson. And I think right now the answer is he's just not all the way there.
On the Jets end, Tyrod Taylor, 17 to 28, 222, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Breece Hall, 20 touches, over 110 yards. John Mechie is the wide receiver 1 with 7 targets, 6 receptions, 65 and a score.
Yeah.
And Adonai Mitchell hit his higher. That's all I care about. 2 receptions and 42 yards.
Yeah. Caught 2 of his 7 targets. Classic Adonai Mitchell. I do think the John Mechie story is really cool, though. So he's bounced around multiple times just this year.
Traded twice this season.
Correct. But he's going to be a starter for the rest of the season, and they're going to eval mode with Tyrod Taylor so they can get looks at Mason Taylor. And then I think that John Mechie, and like as a prospect, Mechie seemed like if he's going to hit, he would be like Jacoby Myers, where he's just going to hang in the league. Maybe you have a nice number 2 receiver. It's obviously has not gone that clean for him, but this is back-to-back weeks where he's been relevant, caught 6 of 7 targets here. So I mentioned my thing on the morning show, like, as, hey, off the waiver wire, stardom, worst case scenario. Mechie was one of the guys I threw out there. I do think that there's a chance he might be in as like a top 40 wide receiver for me this next week. And I think that he's probably going to be 2% rostered or something like that. So if we don't have a waiver wire show this week, John Mechie in a deep league, full PPR, I think that he's reaching that point.
With the caveat, as long as we have Tyrod Taylor as the starting quarterback, which I would expect we do the rest of the way. Like, Justin Fields is not commenting on being benched. Why would you, after the owner said what he did publicly as well? But with Tyrod out there, I mean, they're going to have chances at wide receiver. And overall, shout out to John Mechie. I mean,
hell yeah.
Leukemia in 2022. I think he missed all of 2023. And now, like you said, traded 2 teams in the same season. And at least he's getting an opportunity now and somewhat making the most of it. Okay. We have one more game that we did not get eyeballs on, and that is the Atlanta Falcons being the New Orleans Saints out of a bye, 24-10. This is the Falcons' 4th win of the season. This stops a 5-game losing streak here for the Atlanta Falcons. And most notably, just as we, the world, counted out Darnell Moondog Mooney, he catches all 3 of his targets for 74 yards and a score. And all of it is made up by that 49-yard touchdown.
I mean, I ranked him as like the wide receiver 29, so I'm not sure if that's giving up or what that is. Cool that he came down with it, like it was long overdue, that big post route. Now, 3 targets is like not what you like love to see to like build some confidence moving forward, but boom bust player down the field. At least Kirk Cousins goes in there and gets a big win. So they're no longer giving the Rams a top 10 pick. I think that's like the whole point of the season now for the Falcons. And now it's the 11th pick.
I know they won, but I saw a tweet from Mark Ramonde, who covers this Falcons team for ESPN. And he said, that's 3 straight passes and completions in the direction of Charlie Warner. And that just made me chuckle, because that just shows you where this Falcons team is at in week 12 of 2025. That 3 straight passes go in the direction of Charlie Warner, despite all the investments that they've made in offense.
Dylan Drummond is a name I've never seen in a box score, and he appears with 3 receptions for the Falcons. So never seen him before.
Okay. On the Saints end, Tyler Shuck had a nice week before the bye. Maybe got some rest. Here, the box score is not kind for him. 1 interception, 5 sacks taken, 243 yards on 43 passing attempts. No rushing game to speak of, as he is the team's leading rusher also with 22 yards. So when I go back and watch this, I'm sure I'll see totally an unbalanced game from the Saints team.
Yeah, I saw Alvin Kamara up on the sideline, like kind of hip drop-esque, where his knee kind of got bent all out of shape. He is getting MRIs. It looks like it's going to be like an MCL injury, which could be no games to a long absence. Who knows? But they're 2-9. They just don't have like a clear-cut backup. Like Devin Neal's their RB2, but then all of a sudden Taysom Hill gets 10 carries. Also, I saw Taysom Hill at the goal line on the 4th down, break the pocket, throw the ball pretty much out of way. So, just one of those games. I do want to go back and watch all the Tyler Shuck games because they're going to have a very big decision. They're
Huge.
Currently 3rd overall. So we got to really grade the Tyler Shuck stuff as we wind down here. And then Chris Olave, 13 targets. This is what you want to see. Like if the season's being wasted, you get 9 receptions, 70 yards, 13 targets. Is it going to be efficient? No, but we'd like to see all that volume.
Do you think the biggest win that Falcons fans could have the rest of the season is not having the Rams be among top 10 mock draft graphics from February until the last weekend in April? Because right now they're 11th.
Yeah, it's a big deal. No, 11th pick is versus 10 is that's all. There's a lot of top 10 mock drafts on YouTube. There's very little top 11. And if it is the 11th pick, we're going to do top 11 mock drafts. That's a promise.
Yeah, every graphic, we promise you, if the Falcons have 11 picks, every graphic will include the Rams number 11 overall pick. That's for you, Terry Fontenot. Okay, we'll close this thing out with Thursday Night Football, which seems, again, a world ago. The Bills fall to the surging Houston Texans. I believe this is 3 straight wins for Davis Mills as a starting quarterback of this team. CJ Stroud will come back. But after a big win against Kansas City, the Bills follow it with just 19 points and just 253 passing yards, 2 interceptions, and 8 sacks taken here from Josh Allen. That is the biggest storyline from this, is the 8 sacks taken. The Bills' offensive line is very good. Right tackle was more of a question, as it felt like they were banged up in Spencer Brown more than usual. But overall, it speaks to just the freak athletes that Donnell Hunter and Will Anderson are, that we see Josh Allen elongate these plays, stiff arm defensive ends and defensive tackles to buy himself some time and make some unreal passes. But that just was never even possible here. And it shows you just the level of certain caliber of pass rushes can even make some quarterbacks who live on the edge, on the tightrope of those crazy Houdini-like plays, mortal in these moments.
Yeah, that's why I think like the elite edge rusher, it's like, to me, it's like quarterback, left tackle, and elite edge rusher, like the 3 like true premium positions, just because when you have an absolute menace like this, like you can steal some games, and they have 2 of them right now. Like it's wild that Daniel Hunter's a 2. But before this game started, like this wasn't like, obviously it was all about the Texans pass rush, but Josh Allen's just been taking a lot more sacks this year than he ever has before. Like he was like one of the best all time before the season. And then this year he's league average. And that's like pressure to sack ratio where he has like some control of it. Now, I think largely this is just none of my guys are getting open. And that's definitely going to be true when you're facing Stingley and Lassiter and Kalen Bullock and everybody else that they have. But it's just not enough when Ty Johnson is your second leading receiver. Jackson Hawes, a rookie, is your 3rd leading guy. Gabe Davis, who is active over your 1st round pick, and Keon Coleman is up there as well. And then Khalil Shakir, a slot guy, he's the one that boogies around. But I don't see how you solve that problem. So they have a run defense problem, and then they have now Josh Allen takes too many sacks because his guys don't get open problem. And you're going to have to go upset teams on the road because they're 7-4 and the Patriots have 10 wins in that division. So I'm moving the Bills down and down and down in my contender rankings. Like they're going to have to get really hot, and like Josh Allen's capable of doing that, but like it's the same issues that we've talked about since about week 2. And I don't know how they're going to get fixed like all of a sudden as we get into December.
That doesn't even include the fatal flaw they have defensively of stuffing the run. Now, it wasn't maximized in this game because we all know about the Texans offensive line, but we've seen it in plenty of other contests. Yeah, I mean, we are now just over a year where just wide receiver and pass catching needs should have been at the top of the list for the Buffalo Bills. I mean, the trade deadline last year, they traded a 3rd round pick for a totally washed Amari Cooper. And at the time, I wondered if that could take him over the edge. He barely played. I mean, he barely played.
He couldn't catch the ball. Yeah.
The rest of the way. Then this offseason, you make the move to sign Josh Palmer, who is more of a, okay, we're going to be in close coverage type guy versus I'm going to be a big separator and big speed burst. And then, at the trade deadline, you try to make a move for Jalen Waddle, but obviously they're not going to give up their first round pick, and the Dolphins are going to take anything less than a first round pick, especially inside of their own division. And so now you're here with kind of like the worst and most frustrating elements and passing attack of the Kansas City Chiefs that we've kind of like disliked over the last couple of years, and that's your offense.
They really remind me of the Chiefs from the last couple of seasons, except I just don't think they're as good. Like it's the same issues, but they're just not as good. So they have to like prove to me that they can win some games. That's not Josh Allen going to hero mode with the receivers scoring in fantasy land. It's like, no, they're like, it's 3rd and 8 and they just like won on a dig route by themselves. Like you just never see that type of stuff. At
the same time, the quarterback in, like, as we saw in week 1, real shootout matchups, especially if Dalton Kincaid comes back, if it's like a 41-42 contest, he can keep you in it if he's not facing Will Anderson and Donnell Hunter. So they are one of the many flawed teams in the NFL this year, but I think their flaws might be the most glaring of a lot of teams that we have discussed tonight. And that does it. Unless we want to talk anything Texans here. I mean, you have Woody Marks totally once again owning the backfield despite it not resulting in fantasy stats. And then Jaden Higgins, I believe this is 3 straight games of a touchdown too. So they are getting their rookies involved. They did not early this season, but at least you have the Woody Marks and Jaden Higgins combo of that with Jalen Noel waving in the distance.
Yeah, that's 4 of the last 5 games. Jaden Higgins has at least 7 targets. He's not going to be a superstar wide receiver. I think there's some like athletic limitations there. I think he's pretty damn polished. I think that's at the catch point, and then he can also move around the formation. And I think he's just a good route runner. Like he's like about as good of a route runner as a rookie could be when you're not creating a bunch of separation because you're just a menace athletically. So he just like looks like a 2nd round pick who's going to develop over the next couple of years and could be like trotted out as Nico Collins wide receiver 2 opposite. So I don't know what that means for fantasy points, but I do think that for the Texans, like he looks like a nice little hit for him.
That does it for us. Once again, this week's schedule, no waivers, no stats versus film. Instead, you'll have running back rankings, wide receiver rankings, and quarterback and tight end rankings on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. So if you want to support us, the best way of doing that is supporting Underdog. Go play in the Dog app. Description down below. Play $5 your first time, and you get $75 in bonus cash just from me. And again, we're in over 40 states, 20 plus for prediction markets. If you never played in the app, now is the time to do so, and now you can. Thanks to Mosho and Weaves and Hayden. Up the Velo. We'll talk to y'all soon. See ya.